we are looking for more volunteers for this program. I have Bob in the studio, and Bob, oh my goodness, if we could, we'll replace him, but he's too valuable for this moment. Well, good morning, Wareham. It is Wednesday, March 20th. We have a great show here for you. The news headlines, weather report, and of course, today in history. We are missing one segment from today's show, and that is the coffee segment. We're not going to have it, and I will tell you why. And I would like to take this moment. I know I normally like to take this moment, but tomorrow is Candidates Night at 7 p.m. at Serrano's. It is open to the public, so you can come. We are also going to broadcast it live. And if you cannot make it tomorrow, feel free to send in your questions. You can use this email, and that is queen@warehamtv.org. queen@warehamtv.org. And to continue with our program, town elections are near, and we have dedicated today's show to hear from 3 of the 4 candidates running for school committee. We have Jennifer Bailey, April Rossi, and Mary Morgan, talking about why they're running and what their goals are if elected, except for Mary Morgan, who has already won by default. If you will also notice that Jeff Sweat's interview isn't on today's program, and this is because Sweat's interview was already aired on the Good Morning Wareham show last week. We'll re-air his interview later on as we get closer to the election date. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the Good Morning Wareham set. So stay with me because the weather, traffic, and the news headlines are next. Colors on. I kind of tried, and happy first day of spring to all of you. I know it doesn't feel like it, but slowly we'll get there. It is going to be sunny along with few afternoon clouds today, high at 48 and low at 34. Tuesday morning we'll see partly cloudy skies, which will become overcast in the afternoon, high at 49 and low at 43. And do not forget to open your windows tonight. Some rain is coming. Expect no more traffic at Route 3 and 495. The weather conditions are good, and so safe travels, everyone. And now to the news. There were a few news stories over the week, and here are the headlines. Well, naughty, naughty, naughty. Somebody has been unfaithful. To cover Marion Wareham Regional Refuse Disposal District officials Ray Pickles and Robert Tingham have been indicted on account of larceny and presentation of false claims after an investigation by Attorney General Maura Healey and Inspector General Glenn Canha. A statewide grand jury brought 6 charges for larceny over $250 against the Pickles and on March 18th for allegedly embezzling more than $675,000 from refuse disposal district. On the same date, it brought 1 charge of larceny over $250 and 1 charge for presentation of false claims against Tinkham. Pickles served as the executive director for the refuse disposal district for 45 years, and Tinkham served as its district board chairman. Pickles and Tinkham will be arraigned in Plymouth Superior Court at a later date. The state investigation alleges that Pickles had two district accountants that only he knew. No, he had two district accounts that only he knew about, from which he would write himself checks. Pickles allegedly used district funds for personal expenses and billed the district for services he did not do. The state also alleges that Tinkham accepted $65,000 from Pickles for services he did not do. Pickles and Tinkham are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And moving on, do not touch the birthday cake. A New Bedford man was arrested at Wareham Post Office on Friday, March 15th, when he attempted to pick up a package containing 2 kilos of cocaine disguised as a birthday present for a child. Naftali Montero Pelot, 46 years old, was arraigned yesterday in Wareham District Court on the charge of one account of trafficking cocaine over 200 grams. Officials were informed of a suspicious package scheduled to be delivered to the T. Malzetti crouton factory at 15 Kendricks Road on March 12, where Montero Pelot worked. Through a cooperative investigation by the Massachusetts State Police detectives assigned to the Plymouth County District Attorney's Office, United States Postal Inspectors, and Wareham Police. At around 11:29 a.m. on Friday, March 15th, police observed Montero Pelot entering the postal office and present the tracking information to pick up the package. Montero Pelot was given the package and was arrested by police when he attempted to leave with it. And to another news, stop that thief. A man who robbed the Wareham County Market on Marion Road while brandishing a handgun on Friday night, March 15th, is still at large. This suspect, described as a black male between 5 feet tall and 6 inches, or 5 feet and 8 inches tall, weighing between 160 and 180 pounds, was wearing a black sweatshirt with a cabana over his face and brandishing a handgun. When officers responded to the market at 9:48 p.m., no suspect was located by the officers or the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department canine officer. No one was injured, but an undetermined amount of cash was stolen. An active investigation is still ongoing. Contact the Wareham Police Department if you have any information. And to another news. Oh, you think you're having a bad morning? Think again. One person was injured in a rollover crash, snapping a pole in half at around 8:30 a.m. on Monday morning in front of the X Lodge on Cranberry Highway. It was strictly an accident, said Chief John Walsek, adding that there was no OUI. The injuries sustained by the driver were minor, and the driver was transported to Toby Hospital. And moving on, Wareham Wicked local newspaper had the following headline: "Here comes the water bill." The Wareham Water Commission is looking at creating more frequent billing cycle than the current 2 times a year. At Monday night's meeting that last before the scheduled annual district meeting, commissioners discussed speeding up the billing schedule so customers are dealing with a smaller amount due each time, even if there are more frequent bills. For the average Wareham water customer this year, the bill should run about $536 a year, over 2 billing cycles. At the 2018 annual meeting, commissioners had unsuccessfully tried to change the district over to an automated meter reading system, which is used by more than 70% of utility companies in Massachusetts. But the change would have added an estimated $50 to each customer's bill per year. The proposed $2.5 million automated system did not pass muster with voters at the April 9th annual meeting. And that is all I have for the news headlines today. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break. We are going to start today's special programs with Jennifer Bailey's interview. Jennifer is one of the 3 candidates running for the 2-year seat in the school committee race. Here is why Jennifer is running. Town elections are April 2nd, and in the race is Jennifer Bailey, one of 4 candidates running for the 2 open seats for school committee. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. So you're one of 4 candidates running for the 2 open positions. And one of the candidates is Jeff Sweat, who is a name recognition in this town. He has served in the school committee for so many years. He lost his election last year. He's coming back this year. So people listening to this interview, they are going to ask the same question. Why you?
So you're right. Jeff certainly brings a lot to the table. He has a lot of experience. He has a lot of community involvement. He has a lot of education to back up his ideas and to sort through things. And my other opponent, April, brings a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of dedication, a history with the town and the families here. I think I bring a combination of those 2 things. So I have the enthusiasm, I have the dedication, and I also have the education and the experience to let me sort through some of these complex issues. I think what differentiates me is that I don't necessarily have the same agenda that other people might. I'm coming in with a fresh perspective, and I'm really interested in listening. I'm willing to admit that I don't know everything, and I'm looking forward to listening and finding out more, and I think that's what sets me apart a little bit. Okay, wonderful.
Now, there are a lot of misconceptions in the school, okay, Wareham public schools that are dealing with. And you're coming from a long line of educators, your father, your mother, you yourself. You worked in Wareham for a little bit. You're currently working in Old Rochester High School, right?
Yep.
What is your general overview about Wareham public schools?
I think we're starting to move in a really good direction. I think there are some really positive, exciting things happening that people need to hear about. Because you're right, there is a perception that, oh, everybody gets bullied. There's not, whatever the negative feelings are that are out there. And I think we need to really focus on the exciting things that are happening. So for example, there's a literacy program at DECUS that's going on that's showing some really promising results for boosting up scores for kids who are coming in not knowing letters. getting at a disadvantage in that sense. And so if this program can boost them up to fill some of that gap, that's really exciting. At the middle school, there's a lot of project-based learning going on. So there's hands-on, there's experiential kinds of things that our kids are getting really excited about and really invested in. And that's really what I want to see for our kids, is having that passion for education and having it be interesting and meaningful to them. And then at the high school, we have the dual enrollment program, we have the IB program. So there's really rigor, there's really good educational things that are happening in terms of our schools, and I think we need to really promote that and make people aware of that. That being said, there's always room for improvement. So I think looking at how can we boost some of the social emotional things that are going on. So we have hired more staff, which is wonderful. We've got more social workers, more guidance counselors, and I really commend the superintendent for recognizing that as a need and finding a way to make that happen. I think that's a great step. But I think there's also some programs we can implement that are backed by research that can be done with regular classroom educators. So it doesn't require additional training. It doesn't require extra materials that are going to cost taxpayer money, but things that can be done within the classroom to promote self-esteem, to promote awareness of how your actions affect other people, to hopefully reduce some of that kind of bullying, some of that stigma that we have around those issues in town. I think another thing I'd really like to push is more vocational opportunities and community partnerships. I think one of the strengths of this town is that we have people who want to help. There are people who want to get involved, and we should use that. So I'm really looking for ways to maximize the resources that we have, and not just financial resources. I mean the town people, I mean the kids, I mean the teachers, because we have fantastic people here that we really need to give them opportunities to get involved.
Wonderful. And to touch on the point of additional programs that can be implemented that do not require additional staff. Here, under your priorities, this is a little bit about you. You said maximizing and expanding character resources while keeping taxpayer budget in mind. As you're aware, the taxes are going to go up in this town. We are building a new elementary school to replace Dacus and Minot Forest. So this is very important to this town. At the same time, the school is underfunded. Right, just from our current, the budget that just came out for the fiscal year 2020, I think down to $71,000 is lacking. $71,000 is, is lacking. So how would you help to reach a consensus?
Right. That's a really good question. I've thought a lot about this particular issue because obviously the budget is always an issue. It's always a challenge, and there are difficult decisions that have to be made. We don't live in a perfect world with perfect resources. I wish we did. So it's really trying to balance, I think, the greater good, what's going to be the best for the most group of people. I think no matter what decision you make, someone's going to be negatively affected, and that's awful, but it's unfortunately reality because we can't keep asking the taxpayers for more and more money. We have to figure out ways to use what we have, to be creative. To that end, some of the things I'm interested in is, can we have high school students, maybe from the National Honor Society or other service groups, come in and volunteer to work with younger students so we can hire less para staff, for example, something like that. How do we get parents involved? How do we get more community members involved so we can reduce staffing costs in that way? So really looking at creative ways, some of which might work, some of which might not, but really trying to kind of be a little bit more creative to make the most of what we have. So another thing in terms of maximizing our resources that I'm really interested in doing is making sure that we have planned maintenance being done on a regular basis. This is a question I need to find out about. It could be being done. I know the community has a lot of questions, particularly with the new roof incident, or the recent roof incident, about have things been checked on, have they been followed to plan, and I think that is really important to look into because, especially as you said, we're building this new school, we're moving forward with that, we need to get in the habit of making sure we're doing all the planned maintenance for the buildings that we have so that we're in a good spot to make sure we do that for the investment that we're putting into this, so we're not coming back and saying we need this repair that potentially could have been prevented. So that's something I'm really interested in, and I also wanted to share related to the budget, there's some exciting news that I want the community to know about, that there's a bill in the Senate right now that will readjust, is proposing to readjust the funding formula from the state, and it would change how the state determines how much money we get from the state and how much we as a community are obligated to pay. And I think it would really, they're focusing on especially the special education costs and health insurance costs to make those more current. When the formula was developed, it was almost 20 years ago, and things have changed a lot since then, particularly in special education programming and health insurance premiums. So I encourage everyone to reach out to your legislators if you're interested to support this bill, because it could really help bring a lot more money into the district.
And you are a teacher, as I mentioned.
A speech pathologist.
You work with students, and you're talking about how we can involve other members of the community or even students, okay, in order to mitigate the cost and hiring more employees, more teachers. Is that realistic?
I don't know. That's one of the questions that I have, something I'd want to explore. I think it could be. I know, for example, a few years ago, the issue of moving the preschool to the high school came up as a potential change in the district reorganizing. And a lot of people were really concerned about that and thinking, oh, this is, not good for the kids, it's not good for the staff. But I've seen in my experience, we have this at Old Rochester, we have a preschool in the high school, and it's been great for the kids. The students can come in, the high school students come in as volunteers, they come in as part of their child development class and early childhood education class, so they're getting hands-on experience with what they're learning in class, and they're also providing support, so not as many staff need to be hired. So I think it potentially could be realistic. I think it would require finagling, but I think it's worth looking into.
Okay. We lose our students. Okay, we lose our funding. Part of us losing our funding is due because we're losing students because of school choice.
Yes.
Okay, they're going to Old Rochester, they're going to Upper Cape, they're going everywhere else, but coming to Wareham, and the funding goes with them. What is your plan to fixing that?
So I think that's two parts. I think the kids who are leaving to go to Old Rochester or other schools that are similar, that don't offer a vocational program, it's because of that perception. It's this idea that if you go to Wareham, you're going to get bullied. If you go to Wareham, you won't get a good education, which is not true. And I think that's the message we need to get out. We need to be more proactive about showing the public, here are the awesome things that are happening. No, these things aren't true. Yes, some kids have bad experiences, but that's true anywhere. Kids get bullied everywhere. And not to excuse that behavior, but not to say it's only a Wareham problem. If you go somewhere else, it's not necessarily going to go away. So I think that perception part is for the first part, and then increasing those vocational opportunities for kids who want to go to Upper Cape. So I know Wareham does have what they call a school to work program, where kids can earn course credit for doing some kind of internship. But my understanding is there aren't a lot of kids who are able to take advantage of that because of scheduling issues. And other requirement conflicts. So I'd really like to look at reimagining that so more kids are able to take advantage of that opportunity, because I think that might help us keep more kids in-house. If we can give them something similar, then they won't necessarily have to leave to go get that.
Okay. Now, I've been asking this, anybody that I've been able to ask, I asked this the superintendent, I asked this Ms. Cote during my interview with her. The question is, what is your stance regarding merit versus social promotion?
I was waiting for this question.
You were waiting.
Yes, and you won't like my answer because I don't have one. My answer, I shouldn't say I don't have one, I do have one. My answer is, I don't think this can be a policy decision. For me, it just does not feel right to say it should be merit-based, it should be social. It's such an individual decision, and it's based on so many different factors. I agreed with what Ms. Cote said in her interview, that I think the priority should be on merit, but you do have to look at what merit looks like for each individual student. It's not realistic to think that every student is going to be at grade level 100% of the time, every year. It's just not realistic. We have kids with various kinds of learning disabilities or neurological disabilities, that their merit is a different benchmark. And we want to push them to get to the highest point that they can, but if they're not necessarily going to achieve grade level mastery, it doesn't make sense to keep them back. So I think we really need to look at, are there learning disabilities that are holding kids back? And if so, are they getting supports that are appropriate to help them get to the next level if that's a realistic goal? And if it's not a realistic goal, looking at what the goals are. I think we need to look at, is there a family situation going on where the student is unable to get to school on a regular basis? Or are they coming to school hungry or tired, or having just seen somebody have a fight in their house? Those are different kinds of issues that aren't going to be fixed by giving them more math homework. So the answer to the social promotion versus merit, I think, yes, it definitely does do students a disservice to move them forward before they're ready, but we need to look at what the reasons are that they haven't met those benchmarks and figure out an appropriate intervention.
Now you're talking about individualized education. That is expensive.
Well, it is, but I don't think we necessarily have to provide an individualized education if we're just looking at what the root causes are. I'm sure there will be there's overlapping reasons for why kids might not be meeting these grade level goals. So if we find out, okay, there's this cohort of kids that are having this challenge, this cohort of kids that are having this challenge, then we can address those in different ways.
Okay. Now, your resume checks out. You have the qualifications. You have done your research. What do you think is your weakness going towards this?
My weakness is that this is new to me. You know, I haven't been on a board before. I know the education system. I've worked in schools. I've worked with teachers, with parents. I haven't worked with administrators in terms of creating policy. I've been involved with following policy, but I think and I don't know that it's a weakness necessarily, but it's an area that I will need some growth.
Okay. So you're going to, once again, people will be voting, the elections are April 2nd. What's the last note you want people to take?
That I think we are going in the right direction, and I want to be part of keeping that going.
Okay. You know. Well, thank you very much for being here with to talk about your hopes and dreams, and I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
You talked about that you need to work on your campaigning skills.
Yes.
Well,
I'm uncomfortable in front of a camera.
Well, you know your stuff.
Yes.
So, I hope more people are going to give you the chance.
Thank you. And I think that's what I have. I have experience and I have education. And like I said, I have a willingness to listen. So
wonderful.
Thank you.
So you have heard from Jennifer Bailey, who is one of the 4 candidates running for the 2 open seats for the school committee. Elections are April 2nd. So this is one interview. Hopefully I'll get to meet all the 4 candidates and you'll get to decide for yourself. If you have any questions for her, I am sure she would love to hear them from you. So thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.
You did wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. This is going to go up. This was very easy. That was Jennifer Bailey talking about why she is running for the school committee and her goals if elected. And so moving on, another contestant running for the same seat is April Rossi, in addition to Jeff Sweat. Just like Jennifer Bailey, if elected, this is going to be Rossi's first term serving in the school committee. Here is why Rossi is running.
I am running because I see a need for change. I feel that there is definitely a disconnect. There is a gap. There is a section of our school's population that is under addressed. We have a lot of early interventions. We have a lot of great programs for IEPs and 504s and for people who require those extra services. We have amazing opportunities for those who excel with the IB program, with the accelerated dual enrollments and things like that. It's those average kids. It's the B students that aren't necessarily super overachievers. They're not in every single club. They're maybe play a town sport or they do those things that. And then that middle range from like 4th to like 7th, 8th grade that are getting lost in the shuffle. And those are the majority of the people that are school choicing. And I feel like my perspective is a little bit different. Being a substitute teacher in the school system, having a child in our current school system, not having taught here years ago or having had your kid go here years ago, I'm currently invested in, not that they're not invested, but I'm currently in it 100%. Like my son comes home from Wareham High School every day. He is the first year of 8th graders at the high school. So I'm hearing everything of the transitions for the first time. He was the first set of kids when Minot and Deacon's split, and we split the town from K through 2 and 3rd and 4th. So when Minot and Deacon's split, he was that first set of kids from Deacon's to go over to Minot. He was one of the first round of kids to go up to the middle school for the 5th grade, and now he's that first set of kids. So all these changes in recent years that have affected the district and affected our kids, I'm seeing firsthand as a parent as well as a teacher. I feel that, like I said, having myself been on, I started in Wareham on the PTA at the Deaconess Elementary School, and then as a board member there, and on the executive board as the corresponding secretary. I have then merged with, the Minot and Deaconess to form the Wareham Elementary PTA. I've been on the middle high school PTA. I coached cheerleading for the Wareham Tigers, was the president of the Wareham Tigers for cheer for 2 years. I, do a lot of volunteer work with the Boys and Girls Club, and I substitute teach at the middle school. I see not only how things affect my child, but I see how things trickle down the pipeline to every child in every single situation. Wareham has like a large foster population. There's a lot of grandparents doing a lot of the parenting in unfortunate circumstances for a lot of families, and we are in a very different demographic than a lot of our surrounding towns. And that doesn't necessarily put us at a disadvantage. If anything, it should make us more aware of other circumstances and other people's issues. So when I hear things like, people are leaving because of issues with bullying or intolerance or things like that, honestly, it makes me really sad, because I see so much more than that when I'm at the school. Right, and I think a lot of it comes down to the at-home piece. I find that, some of it, with some of the issues or some of the behavioral problems that people are complaining about, it's the at-home piece. It may be these are single parents or grandparents or other people or other situations that are not as readily available because they're working so hard outside of the home to be able to give these kids what they think that they need, and there's, or there's just a lack of accountability on the parents' perspective. I think that there is a percentage of people that may be sending their kids to school expecting the teachers to parent their kids, and that's not their job. They're supposed to be getting a lot more at home and having these parents accountable. Some of them might not even be aware of some of the issues. A lot of times when a kid is acting out, it's because they're looking for attention, and negative attention is attention, whether it's, it beats a positive reinforcement that they may not know. So I think by kind of having to hold some of the parents accountable for some of the issues, and having an at-home piece, and some families and parents may not know some of the extra services that we provide. There are a lot of social services and a lot of counseling opportunities involved in some of these early interventions that Andrew Schwam had mentioned at an earlier school committee meeting this year. That these services are available at no cost to these families. This is state aid and state grants, and I think it's underutilized for sure. And I think that by bringing attention to that, or even readdressing older policies, I mean, we live in an age where kids have everything instantly at their fingertips. They're able to access and see things that we never would have dreamed at the ages that they are, because of social media, because of technology advances. And I think that we need to change with the times. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So by having, a committee, and not saying that the current school committee hasn't been doing what they feel is best, I do believe that everyone sitting on the committee or who has run for the committee has the best interest in mind. But if things aren't changing and you're doing the same things and reusing the same policies, and people are complaining and nothing's changing, it's time to kind of see it with fresh eyes, maybe relook at some of those policies, readdress some of the issues, and bring it more into the now, as opposed to, well, when my kid was here 20 years ago, or when I taught here 20 years ago. I think it needs to be more modernized, for sure. About a 25% of our population, which sadly that, demographically and financially, those are the ones that qualified to have to pay for the bus, but we brought that back. So now there is a portion of our district that's paying for school buses. So that's income for busing that we didn't have previously. With a lot of the sports teams, that's included. So when people say, oh, well, there's busing for sports, yes, but a parent is paying their child to sign up for that sport. My son just signed up for spring track, so I have to pay, the fee for him to participate in that, and the busing to the games and things like that's included in that. So I think that there should definitely be some creative ways to look into finding a way to boost the availability of the busing, of the late buses, for even if it's just for after school help. I mean, so many kids need that little bit of extra tutoring or that extra catching up to be able to just succeed on a normal level that it's unavailable to them. And for myself, I'm not a mathematician. My son came home with math over the last few years. I have no idea how to help him. I remember how I did the math and tried to help him, but if it's not written in the way that they're taught, they lose credit for that. So if I tried to show my son how to divide, and I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, and they're doing it with the new math and the Common Core math, and I can't help him, and he can't stay after school because he has no way to get home because I'm at work, it's a disservice to my child because I'm unable to help him. So then parents might be struggling to find tutoring, to find time, to find somebody on their own time in evenings to come to them to try to help them help their child just do basic level work. So I feel like across the board that would be a huge advantage to our district, where so many other towns and areas that mirror our needs in our district, like not going to a private or a charter or a vocational school, but just the people that are leaving to go to Carver, to go to ORR, to go to Bourne, those schools should be no different than ours. We offer so many of those same programs, and yet these are the ones that the kids are going to, that families are leaving and going to schools that we should be able to accommodate exactly what they're accommodating. I feel like we do have a lot of teachers that get very creative. We have a lot of amazing educators in our district that just believe in our kids, believe in our district, that could easily accept positions in other towns and other districts and make more money, but they're here because they love our kids, and that's huge. I think that perhaps we should, and there are a lot of grants available that are available nationwide, and we utilize a lot of them. Nicole Stommer, for example, has done great things in the grant department, getting so many things funded for the middle school, and with her Action to Achieve program, and doing a lot of things to incorporate, healthy eating and healthy choices for a lot of the kids, and healthier outlets so that their behaviors kind of are heard, and she's kind of listening to those kids a little bit more and kind of redirecting some of those energies, which has been wonderful as an example. But perhaps even having like an individual who specializes just in grant writing to take some of that away from our teachers, because that's a lot of time and energy and effort that is being put in on their own time to do this. And if we have people that are able to research grants on a nationwide level from different businesses and different companies and different federal organizations, and we can bring that in to kind of offset some of what we're having to pay out of pocket, that may be something worth looking into, having an independent person whose specialty is grants, and just trying to get, as much as we can from other avenues and getting creative. When I was first deciding to run and having to get signatures and ending up on a state-recognized ballot and having to campaign and put myself out there, usually I just volunteer and show up and be involved in as many things as possible. It's never been I've never had to really kind of get chosen. I just kind of, we're so thirsty for volunteers and for parents, and so many things. You see the same parents. They're the same ones that are involved in everything, the same kids that are involved in everything. So I think that, learning to kind of broach that other side, find those parents that aren't at things, or those kids that aren't at things, find out why. Is it financial? Is it, they just don't have the ability to be there, that kind of thing. But I think it's definitely a learning curve in the policy department, how things will run once I'm on the committee, and learning the law. A lot of it is law driven. A lot of the things that we have to do as the school committee comes down to what's allowed in our state. So having to figure that out, I think, is going to be one of my biggest challenges, but I'm up for it. I love to learn. I feel like, life is a constant educational moment. You're always learning. And I think by, leading by example, admitting when I don't know something, but, if I don't know it, I will find out. So I definitely, if I don't have the answer, I will find the answer. if it's myself or any of the other candidates, I believe that they are eager to help the kids in the town. I'm hoping that it's myself that's chosen, obviously, because I feel that I have a lot to bring and a lot to offer, and I'm hoping that I'm given the chance to do so.
Let's play it. That was April Rossi talking about why she is running for the school committee. Stay with us. We'll be right back with the history segment. Hello and thank you for joining us this morning. And this is Good Morning Wareham, and we're broadcasting live from our WCTV studio. And now for a moment in history. Today in 1345, all right, here this is an interesting one. According to History.com, some scholars from the University of Paris claimed that today was the day that the Black Death was created based on a triple conjunction of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars in the 40th degrees of Aquarius. Today we know that the plague was caused by bacteria, Yersinia pests, infecting humans via fleas that often hitchhiked on rats. And moving on to another historical fact, this day in history, the anti-slavery novel Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe was published. In its first 3 months, it sold 300,000 copies. The book was in response to the fugitive slave laws that were made in the time, clamping down on runaway slaves. And that's all for the history segment this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We do not have the coffee segment, but I have one more interview for you. Hello.
Hello.
So your election, this particular one, is with controversy. You were running, and it was you and what, Jeff Sweat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And now you are standing unopposed.
That's correct.
Due to an error.
Yes.
A filing error.
Yes.
So let's start with that. That is hot news. When you got the call that Mary, you are running unopposed, what did you think?
I didn't believe it. I said that couldn't be true. That's impossible. Jeff had accidentally filled out the paperwork for the 2-year seat, and it had already gotten certified by the town clerk. So after investigation, they found that it was too late to reverse the mistake.
So is it an early Christmas gift?
I'm going to be honest. Yes, for me, but for the public, no. I don't think it is fair for the public, because I think that they should always have a choice.
So tell us how you ended up in Wareham School Committee. Give us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I've been a part of Wareham my whole life. My grandfather had a house in Onset, which I still live in. And then I ended up becoming a teacher in Wareham, a special ed teacher, grade 6. And I actually started with Tracy Cote, who's an amazing person and has doing an amazing job as a middle school principal. And I worked in Wareham for 17 years in various positions. Like I said, I started special ed teacher, grade 6.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And then I decided that I might actually have more impact on helping students and also having better programs in Wareham by being on the school committee. So I took a risk, and I found a job in Rockland as an early childhood coordinator and ran for school committee. and won
And won.
another Christmas Day.
So tell me about what was your goal going in and what led you to go in? Why did you run the first time?
When I left Wareham, at that time they were really cutting special ed to the bone. So I felt that I really needed to focus on building special ed up again. And that was my focus and remains my focus. I think there's still more to do with special education, whereas especially with bringing back the special ed public day school that we used to have. I now work in Fall River as a special ed supervisor, and we have a very successful public day school that not only does it allow students to remain in their community, but it also is financially cost effective for the district. Right now, we have a huge cost with out-of-district students, not only because of tuition, but also because of transportation. So on the average, it costs the district about $100,000 to send a student out. But again, it's also, I mean, I always have finance on my mind, but I also have the student on my mind. To me, it's more beneficial for a student to stay in their own community.
In their own community.
Yes.
And that's what you came in to work for.
Yes.
And tell me about the progress you have made in that fight.
Not much.
Not much,
I'll
okay.
be honest, be completely honest. We have, and the other thing we used to have too was an alternative school for, regular ed kids, which we have, but it has significantly declined in size. I believe when I left, there were probably 30 students in the day alternative school, and now we're down to maybe, I want to say 5. And I believe that we still have students that need that alternative education. They just need a smaller setting and a different approach. And that may, and I know one of the concerns in Wareham is behavior, discipline, and all of that. And I believe that alternative education in the public day school would be a great solution for everyone. And also, Mike Flaherty brought up another good point, and that is the child that sort of sits in the middle, who isn't the advanced, where they have all these programs for the advanced students, and then who's not on the lower end, where they do have programming, but again, I want to strengthen it for the children on the lower end. So looking at what can we do for the children in the middle. And one thing that I have thought about, even last term I've brought it up, is more vocational programming. And not to say that the IB program is a wonderful program, it certainly is a wonderful program, but in my opinion, I think we would have been better off going with more vocational program to meeting the needs of the students who aren't able to get into Upper Cape. So then they're stuck. They're stuck where they really wanted to go and get some vocational training, and now they can't because they couldn't get into Upper Cape. So now at least they can, if we had it, they could come out with a skill. And piggybacking on that is that I think that we need to remember that going to college isn't always the answer or the best thing for a person. There are so many skills out there, electricians, plumbers, hairdressers, that are doing so well and are so successful in life, and we need to remember that.
Okay, so you talked about the goals, why you ran, and what you're going to be working on this year. What is your overall evaluation of our school systems? And tell us about the committee itself from the inside out.
Okay. My overall evaluation of the school system is that we have amazing teachers here. I know because like I said, I've worked here for 17 years, so I know we have amazing teachers. We do have good programs that are happening, the dual enrollment, the IB, but again, I probably wouldn't have focused on that. AP programming. We're now looking at doing more literacy work in their early childhood years, which that is another focus of mine as well. I'd like to see that strengthened up. I think the teachers are doing amazing jobs, but they need, in my opinion, they need more support to do it effectively. You know, right now they're doing interventions in large groups, and they need to be doing them in smaller groups to be effective. And that too is where I'm looking at equity between the schools. So at the high school we have some IB classes where you have only 3 to 4 students in them, and then you look down at the elementary level, and you have large classes where you need to have them smaller to have effective interventions. And I also know that it's kind of like the middle child syndrome, but Minot tends to have less supports than they do at Deacon's or at the high school. And I understand some of the reasoning for that, but also I think it makes sense to look at what is best for the students.
Okay, regardless where they are.
Right. Yeah.
I asked my other candidates this, those who are running opposed, why you? I'm going to ask you the same question. Let's say Jeff was in this election with you. What are you bringing to the table that Jeff isn't?
Bringing a thorough knowledge of, one, the Wareham community, because I've been a part of Wareham my whole life. The other is an inside and out understanding of the school system, because I worked in not just one school, but I worked within all the schools for 17 years. I also continue to work in education, like I said, as a special ed supervisor, so I bring that knowledge, I think, extensively, especially in the area of special ed and early childhood.
Okay. You know, the community is very critical of the school department. Why do you think so?
I think part of it, and I was thinking about this on my way over because I knew that'd probably be a question. I think that part of it is because we go from one extreme to another, meaning that we want to put the positive out there so badly that we forget about the the negative. We just brush that. No, don't talk about that. Basically, don't talk about that. And I think if we were more transparent and say, yes, this is a problem. Discipline's a problem. Yes, it definitely is a problem, and we're working on that. And I don't know if I've already mentioned it, but I'd like to see I think I have, the public day school come back and the alternative education come back so that we can address them in a more appropriately way. I know that they're trying to. They're like with the social workers, they've hired social workers, they've hired behaviorists, which I should say that they've been put back because that's when I left. They had cut those things. So yes, I can see that there is effort out there, but I would like to see, like I said, those other programs come back and have more serious, in-depth discussion about it and say, honesty. Yeah, that's right, honesty. Yes, we are struggling with this. Let's do something about it.
Now, those are negative stereotypes that the department is facing. To what extent are they related to the budget restrictions? Do you see any correlation there?
Yeah, absolutely, because it does cost money.
Okay.
It costs money to say we decide to bring back the alternative school and the public day. It's going to cost to start it up.
Okay.
But in my opinion, it's going to be cost effective because no longer are we going to be spending $100,000 per student to send them out. We'll be paying for the cost of the teacher, which, I don't know, average 50-something thousand. Cost of a para, unfortunately, they don't get paid very much. And then, some other staffing. But when you put it all together, you're not going to be paying as much as sending the students out.
The new budget that has come out, lacking $71,000, there's a gap there.
Yeah.
What's your take on the new budget?
It's unfortunate. It's definitely sad to see that we're not getting more for the taking into consideration the cost of living and the increases that happen in salary and with insurance and all of that. But
where could we make the cuts? There were some cuts were suggested. Do you agree with that?
Some of the cuts, yes, and again, it goes back to looking at programming. Where are we spending our money wisely? And in some cases, I don't think the money is being spent wisely, and we could be more cost effective. I keep using that word, cost effective.
All right.
Yeah.
And my last question to you is, what is your stance regarding social and merit promotion?
Oh, another controversial.
Don't you just love coming here?
And it sort of goes back to everything I've been already talking about. I agree with what Mike was saying, that why are we just socially promoting these kids, but I also agree with what the school district is saying too, that the research doesn't support it. Just keeping a child back isn't going to benefit them. Research I've read about it is, say you keep a child back in second, third grade, then later it seems like they're doing better in the next few years, but then later down the line, say in sixth grade, seventh grade, they start failing again. And I actually have personally experienced that, where I had students who were retained in say even first grade, and then they came to me in the sixth grade and they were struggling again. But so my answer, or it's not an answer obviously, my thought is that we need to look at doing interventions better. And that's what I was saying about the high school, where they've got classrooms for the IB program. They have classes of 3 and 4. That should be happening down at the elementary level, early childhood. So they have intense intervention going on there. Again, the research will support that. In order for intervention, when you get to the intense level, in order for it to be effective, you shouldn't have a group more than 3 doing it.
Yeah. And you're running, of course, unopposed. You're going to be in the school committee. How influential are you guys in the schools, in the education the kids are getting?
That's a good question. I don't feel like that I at least have a lot of influence. And many times I see that most of the committee members just go with what the superintendent decides, which is fine. And we can't change that. That's one thing. We can't change that. The only thing we have power over is the budget and also her evaluation. That's the only thing we really have power over. We don't have any sort of decision making on programming, but we can suggest and recommend. However, if you go to the school committee classes, there's a class that you go to in order to be on the committee. They'll tell you that you really should go with what the superintendent wants. But it's hard for me because of my background, and what I know. So it's hard for me to just say, yes, yeah, that's a great idea. And I don't see why there can't be some disagreement on a committee. I mean, if everyone's saying yes, what's the reason for a committee?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all your dedication.
Thank you.
And congratulations. You have won.
Thank you.
So 3 more years.
No, yes, and I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, fantastic.
All right, thank you.
That was Mary Morgan talking about, what she's planning to do next year and her work last term. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you missed us, we'll re-air this episode at 6 tonight. Join us on Friday. Thank you. Have a good one.